I'm Brian Van, SportbikeTrackGear.com, and today we're going to break down the Spiegler brake line install on an ABS-equipped, okay, it's important to understand that, ABS-equipped GSX-R1000 or GSX-R1000R. Okay, this is my new 2018 Suzuki GSX-R1000R project bike. This is going to be a replica of our race team partner, M4 X-Star Suzuki's. Jake Lewis, the man with the mullet himself, he pilots that bike in Moto America, and this is going to be kind of a loose replica of Jake's bike as we go through the entire process. You've seen there's a few videos out so far. We've got a lot more to come. We're heading to the racetrack again today with Sportbike Track Time Grattan Raceway. I got 3 damp sessions on this thing, dang it, 2 weeks ago, and I'm really eager to get back out there and ride. The first ride I had on the OE brake lines, rubber brake hoses. This is the ABS equipped version. This is the R. So all the R's have ABS. There is also a standard ABS version of the GSX-R1000R. This install is going to cover both of those bikes, okay? This kit fits both those bikes. The install is going to be the same. We've done a Yamaha R6 ABS. We have done a Ninja 400 ABS. Definitely more effort to install one of these kits as compared to a standard non-ABS motorcycle where you're simply just replacing the lines. The reason for that is, and you're going to see it through the video, you've got your ABS unit here. There are lines that need to be replaced that will span from the ABS unit all the way up to the front. Also a line that spans from the ABS unit all the way to the rear caliper. We're going to break all that down, but it complicates the install. It makes it a little more challenging. So rating this on a scale of difficulty of 1 to 10, and your mechanical ability is, has an impact on this for sure. I'm going to say this is probably about a 7. This is pretty deeply involved. Fuel tank needs to come off. Airbox, off. Of course, the seat is going to have to come off. The fairings will all stay on the bike. You're working in tight quarters with some of it. If you're able to manage the fuel tank, airbox removal, and the rest of it, you're going to be able to get through this install and do a great job on your own. Why do you replace these? What's wrong with these rubber lines if you don't know that already? Well, under pressure, these expand. That reduces braking force and really takes a lot of the feel away when riding. When you're going to ride a bike fast, especially on the racetrack, you need all the power and feel you can get. This is the best bang for the buck performance mod you will ever do to this bike. It's going to make a huge impact. You'll notice it the first time you ride it. I've decided to leave the ABS intact on this motorcycle and understand how it works, and the reasons for that are simple. The first 3 damp sessions I got at Grattan, I'm like, man, when I was going into turn 1 on the brakes, I'm like, God, this bike's just super stable. That's weird. So I came back and I did some research and I called my buddy Chris Ulrich and we talked more about the bike. Suzuki has put a lot of time and effort into the anti-lock brakes on this bike. This R model specifically is able to do some things that are pretty bitchin', like help you modulate the brakes when you're using the front trailing in, varying lean angles to help you do a better job with that and hopefully maybe not throw the thing away. Also, when you're going into turn 1 or whatever turn's hard braking, it's going to help you keep the bike settled, okay? It will not allow for rear wheel lift. Some other stuff too, pretty complicated nerd stuff, but I noticed it right out of the gate, and from there I just committed to leaving it on there so I could experience the bike as it is meant to be experienced. Okay, so that's the reason to replace it. Right out of the gate, I'm going to give you a couple of my tricks, okay? If you don't want to watch the whole video, if you don't need to see the whole install, this is something new that I came up with on this one because I had to snake these lines through the frame. These are just little baggies. No, we're not starting a grow operation here. These are little part baggies that I had from different installs. So what I did is when I took the lines off, after of course evacuating the system, you always just get a little bit of dribble. I'd slide these baggies over and then I use safety wire to secure them. It allowed me to pull them right out. No drip, no fuss, no muss. So that's a nice little trick. You can use that on any bike, okay? Just going to be a cleaner install. And then the most significant one, in my opinion, getting that last tiny little bit of air out. I show you how to bleed the brakes on this. ABS bikes are really easy to bleed, no different than standard when you really get down to it. I'm going to show you how to do it on this if you watch towards the end of the video, but when you're all done, what I want you to do is get that front lever pumped up, put a couple of cable ties on it, just walk away, just leave it alone. Gravity is your friend in this situation. What's going to happen is if there's any air bubbles lower in the system, especially as you're reassembling, or when I haul this to Grattan later today and it's in the trailer rocking around, I'm going to do this again, those little bubbles are just going to magically work their way up and it will be as air-free as humanly possible. So that's a pretty cool little trick all on its own. Very quickly, we'll just review some of the routing. Come up here and give you a look at the master cylinder. I went with yellow and blue fittings because unlike Jimmy Fox, I have amazing color coordinating skills, okay? Looks phenomenal on this motorcycle with Spiegler. Man, you've got your choices, so many different color combinations. Get your bike looking awesome. This is the over the fender install with the ABS. It's gonna be pretty much a stock routing. We have a double banjo bolt here on the right caliper. We have a line that rolls over to the left caliper. If you look up under the triple, you can see nice clean install right there. We'll come on back to the rear brake. And you can get an idea of all the routing. Spiegler has designed the rear brake line so that it uses all of the stock mounting points. I bolted this down in all the same positions, was able to hook the wheel speed sensor harness up using all the stock clips exactly as it was with the OE line, which is really important. You want to make sure that you've got those lines secured on this bike because those sensors are key to all the really cool stuff the electronics do. It needs the inputs from those sensors. So there you have it. Best performance mod you'll ever do on this bike or any other if it came with these wonderful rubber brake lines, okay? You can customize the look and feel. That's really cool. If you dig what you see, you want to get these for your Suzuki and you want to see all the steps that we have for the install, just stay tuned. They're going to follow this. Okay, so you can see I've got the fuel tank off, I've got the air box off. Those things really are very self-explanatory. Once again, Suzuki does a kick-ass job of making a motorcycle that's easy to track prep or race prep, okay? So the tank came right off, air box right off. I don't think you're gonna have much trouble with that. Now we're gonna focus on the front brake lines first. Spiegler has these marked, okay? So here is the right caliper. This fitting, it's a flared fitting. There is a solid brake line, right? A metal pipe that runs from the ABS block to the front of the motorcycle that is going to connect to this. And then we're doing an over the fender from caliper to caliper. So we're going to leave that. That part is super easy, not a problem. Now, the challenge is going to be the master cylinder to the ABS block. That has rubber hose on each end with metal piping in between. And the only way to do it is to replace the entire thing because you're not able to take the rubber hose off the end of the line. It routes like this, okay? All up through the frame, grommets, wraps around to the master cylinder, okay? This is going to take a little bit of time. Super doable, I think easier than that Yamaha R6 ABS we did, but still be prepared to invest some time in doing this. I'm gonna need to get a little more access right here, okay? The way this routes under here, you know, I wanna see if I can pull this support off and have a little more space in that area. So I'm gonna focus on doing that right now. Okay, all those fasteners out. Let's see what we're dealing with. Okay, this is looking pretty promising right now. Now we've got a couple of sensors plugged in here. Can let it dangle if you want, or you could unplug each of the sensors and then we can just go ahead and pull the bracket off, which is probably the right way to do it. Looks like the release for this one is right there on the top. You can use a small flat bladed screwdriver, or you know what, let's make it even easier. We'll just slide the mount off of the bracket and we'll leave that one plugged in. Okay, so that's really pretty basic. Now we have plenty of room here to work with. A couple of things I want to point out. throttle bodies, air box is off, okay? You can ball up some rags and put them in there if you want. Remember, this is a by-wire bike. They're not gonna fall open. I'm just gonna roll like this. I'm not worried about it. I will blow them all out with a blowgun after. We're to the point now where I'm gonna go ahead and drain the brake fluid, okay? This just helps you do a cleaner job. I have an air compressor and a power bleeder here that I use to suck all this out. If you don't have these items, get like a turkey baster, right? You can use that to suck it out of the reservoir, and then down at the calipers, you can always go ahead, you know, just let gravity be your friend and help you out. As always, when you're doing any type of brake service to your bike, it's a great idea to have cleaner, you know, water, rags handy, because remember, brake fluid is just some nasty stuff. You get it on the paint, it damages it for sure. So be ready to clean up. Okay, right here, that is the line that comes off the master cylinder. There is a retainer here, grabs the grommet. We need to remove the 5mm internal hex fastener that's there. You can see I've got a long extension wobble and a socket. Need to be able to get that bracket out of the way. So I'm going to open up with that. Hard to really, you know, show you this super close on video, but you know, once you tackle the project, you'll see it. The ABS bikes definitely present a little bigger challenge, you know, than we're used to when you do a set of brake lines. Normally it's just a couple of quick lines and you're good. You know, your job is done, and that is just no longer the case. And with this bike, Suzuki has built in so much cool stuff, cool technology with this anti-lock brake system that I want to experience the bike with it. And my hopes are to leave it for quite a long time, and possibly even forever. If I use it and I'm like, wow, that's amazing, then I'm just going to leave it alone. So once you get that fastener out, you got to get back in there and pull the line out of there. The grommet's in there. It's in there actually fairly snug. So I'm going to loosen up the master, rotate it up. It's just going to allow me to get to the banjo bolt that's on the bottom. We've got a clip here. I'll undo this. Like so. Okay. Now our front line is the one that goes to the master. It's this one right here on the top. Okay, it's going to run down the side of the frame rail. Take a little further look at it. This connector here. Okay. Should be able to pull the line through there. Come back. It is the upper brake pipe. Go ahead and pop it out of the retainer here on the frame. Okay, yep, that was the right one. And it runs over here. There's another grommet back here. We'll push that through and release that. Like so. Okay, from here, this is going to run under gas tank support. Pull the harness over a little bit. like so. And that's just a metal brake pipe. You can see you're able to bend that quite a bit, so pretty malleable. So we're in good shape here. I come back here, got a 12mm wrench, and we're going to go ahead and take the banjo out of the ABS unit. For example, just going to put a rag down here, just kind of be a little proactive. I expect some fluid. Okay, pull that out, let it sit. Grab another one of these rags. Collect all of our banjos, wipe my hands off. Okay, now we're ready to tackle the banjo up here on the master. For sure, we're going to put a rag down. This one should also be 12mm. Okay, that is out. And you can see already that draining the system, man, that makes a real difference. Okay, just to try and manage some of the fluid as I pull this thing all through the frame, because it's going to be banging all over. You want to try and do the best you can to keep it from spilling everywhere. And there are going to be some remnants of fluid still in that line. I took the hardware bag from the Spiegler line kit, and I've got it draped over the end of the fitting. Well, just a tiny little piece of safety wire cable tied worked just fine too. Okay, and then, like so. Now we can come back here. And grab a hold of this line and start to work it. So you can see with the line, I'm literally just bending it. You could disconnect it here. There's just no point in doing that. The reason the brake line kit comes with one complete line, okay, and doesn't take advantage of that connection that's right there is the fact that the line back there at the pump, okay, at the ABS unit, is fixed on the steel line, so there's no way around it. You have to replace the line. So even though you see that fitting up there, don't think for a second, hey, no, you still had to do it that way. Okay, back here. Now we can take this and begin to twist it around like so. And this one, considering it's higher, we're not going to have a lot of spill here. You could grab another little baggie if you want to. There you go. That's out. And if you look right here by that grommet, that's fixed. So the only way to manage this was to replace the entire line. All right, now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to feed this through. I'm going to route it the same way the OE brake pipe was routed. A whole bunch more flexible. You can see that right out of the gate. So that's making my life a lot easier. Okay, just continue to feed it through. That grommet needs to be up here in a position where it can go in that bracket like that. Okay, now let's take a look and see how we are over here at the master. Spacing. I dig that. That is 100% cash money. Okay. I'm going to go ahead now and put the banjo bolt in the master. Okay, banjo, crush washer, fitting, crush washer, brake component. That is the order that has to go together in. Do not reuse any of the stock washers, always new washers. The kits that we do, especially for a high-end bike like this is going to come complete. If you choose the colored, the blue ends like I did, you're going to get blue bolts. Just the right way to do the kit. There are some times with select models where there will be some maybe at the ABS unit reused. Okay, and we'll find out if that is the case here on this Suzuki, because we've not done this model previously. I'm going to go ahead and get this grommet in position. All right, pull that over. That looks really good. Happy with that. Okay, we'll put the bolt in after the fact. Not concerned about that right now. Now, routing. Okay, if you remember, we had a brake pipe that very closely hugged the other one that was routed through the frame. Okay, and we want to preserve that. We want it to be the same. So I'm going to tuck it under the support here for the tank. And we're going to deal with this after the fact. Now, let's come back here. Let's get this positioned. Remember, with these Spiegler lines, you are able to rotate the fittings on the line to get them lined up perfectly. That's really important, because what you don't want to do is say, like in this situation, you don't want to grab a hold of this line and twist it like that. That's no good. Okay, what you want to do is you want to use the provided tools to turn it so that there is no stress put on the line itself. Okay, and now I'm going to show you how to do this on the bike. The best way to do this, honestly, is in the vise, but in an install like this, notice how I'm cleaning off any fluid residue, because I don't want that to be slippery at all. Install like this, what I don't want to do is take this thing over to the vise to clamp it down and rotate it, because you know what, then you've got a bunch of guesswork. It's going to be a pain in the shorts. Make sure that your hands are clean and you don't get brake fluid on this. If you have brake fluid on the surfaces, it will not grip very well. What's going to end up happening then is the tool will begin to rotate. Okay, the line will rotate in the tool and you're done. It's all over. So I've got the two halves in there. You can see now I got a pair of channel locks. And your goal here is to get really good even pressure. I'm going to kind of move the channels around until I can get a sense for, see that? And I'm squeezing pretty hard. Now I rotate it right about there. Notice that I have no gap in the sides of that tool. That's super important. There's tiny little plastic edges in there. And if you let it spin, it's going to tear those off. It's not going to work very well. Make your life a whole lot harder. See how we wound up? Well, look at that. That's zero stress, rolling right over. Suzuki, I love you. That's what I'm thinking right now in my mind. I'm thinking, Suzuki, I love you. This bike is just so flippin' easy to work on. Okay. Banjo, crush, fitting, crush to your brake component. Get kind of a tight squeeze here. Getting this started could be a little bit of a challenge. That's the beauty of video. If I have a hard time with this, I tell Steve to cut. And I say, don't show people that. And we start over until I look like I know what I'm doing. In this case, I didn't have to do that. It actually went pretty well. So we're going to go ahead and just run that down, finger tight. And now I want to backtrack and I want to secure my line against the frame and make sure that I've got that perfectly dialed in. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and put that fastener back in up here. Decided to go with a different tool this time, quarter drive. Just need a little more room. That 3/8 was kind of tough in there. So hopefully this treats me well. Feel like I've got it started. Okay, we do have some throttle cables that are there too. I want to make sure that I'm not crushing them in any way, shape, or form. That would be a major league bummer, especially considering I'm hoping to get my first dry ride on this dang bike this weekend. Okay, so once again, you know, don't be afraid to pause and take a look. And it was just kind of catching the edge of those. It's a good thing I did that, or else I would have created some serious shit for myself. All right, that's secure. So far, that's probably been the hardest part of this project, which is absolutely shocking. Okay, now, before we go any farther, I really want to focus on this, okay? This needs to be right. From what I can tell right now, I think I'm going to go with 4. I'm going to get one more cable tie, and I'm going to use it right over here. Beyond that, I like the way the line dropped in here. And of course, after I ride it, I'm going to either ride it this weekend or the following weekend. I just feel like give you guys some really good feedback on the difference that this made. The first ride I got on the bike was unfortunately 3 partial damp sessions. It was the Grattan Raceway, the Sportbike track time. My son Max was there, and he did quite a bit of riding in the damp because he certainly is more daring than his old man. And when his session was up, we would just be coming in, so I'd try to come in like halfway through, help the kid get on the bike and get out there. Okay, all right. I'll grab one more cable tie, put it over here. We're gonna be good. I like the way I've got that. Okay, got it all secured. We're gonna go ahead and put some torque on our banjos now at the master and back here at the ABS unit. These are aluminum fittings and aluminum banjos, so there's no need to go crazy with the torque, okay? Like so. Come on up to the master. Check our alignment. I like that. And same deal, just a reasonable amount of torque. Right there. Okay, now let's tackle the lines that go to the calipers. Got our speed sensor clips over here on this side, but pop those bad boys off just so that we're unrestricted. We're going to have the over the fender mount here. Okay, now we need to change the line that goes from that steel brake pipe up here at the steering head area to the caliper over here on the right side. It's really close to the radiator, okay? I'm not really digging that. Putting a wrench back there and torquing on it. So what I'm gonna try and do here is, let's first break it loose from the bracket. I'm gonna try and pull the whole thing forward a little bit, and then use a line wrench to break loose the flare nut, okay? Really would prefer to not ding the radiator on the bike. So I'm going to take out the bolt that mounts the rubber hose, the actual junction block for the rubber hose, just under the steering head. Okay, I've got the fastener out of that. It was 8mm hex. Okay, now just going to kind of have this thing just a little See, just a little tug, not a ton, just a little bit. Okay, now grab a wrench. You can try and use a standard 10 mil. I have a line wrench set, so that's what I'm gonna feed up in here. Just gonna grab a hold of that flare nut better. And I'm gonna support the line with one hand. See if I can't bust this loose. These are typically fairly tight. Okay, got it. Just awesome. From here, take that line wrench off. Come back here now, and hopefully I can break that loose the rest of the way by hand. Now I'll grab an open-end 10. That looks like I'm good. Using a rag, just in case we get a little fluid. All right, I've got that line off. No real fluid spill, which is nice. Go ahead and grab a 12 mil. And we can get the banjo bolt off the caliper here. And I want you to pay attention to how this went. Okay, the line from the master went on top of the line that crosses over from caliper to caliper. And on the reinstall, we're going to mimic that, okay? So just be here ready to clean up any fluid spill. I do expect some out of the calipers. It's really hard to get all that. Okay, get the rag there, just kind of soak some of that up. We'll now go over to the other side and pull the brake hose that crosses over from caliper to caliper. Sure, by now you've already noticed I chose an amazing color combination of yellow line with blue fittings. Jimmy has already criticized that, claiming red is better. I think Jimmy may be colorblind, it's possible. So I'm trying not to judge him too much. Because clearly, yellow is the superior option. Okay, that off, just be here cleaning fluid. And when I come back, we are going to be ready to install those two front lines. Okay, Spiegler has little stickers that mark which caliper it goes on. We're going to start over here on the left side. When you pull these stickers, I want you to also pay close attention to the surface of the fitting. Make sure it is completely clean and free of debris, okay? This is going to fold over the fender like so. Okay, so remember we're going to go banjo. Steve was running away, he saw that already, right? Banjo, crush, fitting, crush washer, and into your brake component. Okay, and that thing jumped up in there in a really weird spot, so let's get that back out of there. Just get that jumping over the fender. If we need to rotate this line, we're going to do it mounted to the bike, just like I did on that ABS unit, okay? So we're going to use the same technique. Kind of manipulate the line a little bit to take some pressure off of that fitting so you can get it started. And for now, finger tight will be sufficient. Like so. And that's going to end up routing over the fender. Okay. So we'll leave that loose for now. Over to the other side. Well, there's going to be no need to rotate that fitting. I'll take that. Okay, this side uses a double banjo bolt. It's a little different than what we've shown you thus far on the bike. Let's grab the other line. This one obviously has the ability to accept that flare nut up there. Okay, so we're going to take this off. And this might almost be easier than the Ninja we just did. All right, now grab a hold of that brake pipe fitting. Okay, let's try and get this up in there. It's a tough spot here. This is really tight. Feels like I got it. At least the first thread or two. I'm going to grab a rag now. It's a little slippery. See if that doesn't help me. Okay, and once we get this at least finger tight, we'll be able to mock up the rest of the install, and then I can finish up. And it's going to take 2 wrenches in the end to tighten this. One on the fitting on the line, and the other on the Spiegler stainless steel braided hose. Okay, all right, got that. So we're going to leave that just finger tight for now. Back over here, and let's check the orientation of our fittings. We already knew we were good on the first. Looks like the second might be pretty darn close, so we're going to go for this. Okay, now let's go ahead and let's get this caliper hooked up. Banjo, crush washer. We want to put the master line on top. I'm going to put the other crush in right there, in between the 2 lines, like so. One more crush that goes in between the brake component and the second fitting. Okay, now this is always more challenging, I'll tell you that right out of the gate. When you have 2 lines going through a single banjo, a little more challenging, so be patient, take your time. Just continue to manipulate it until you find the angle. Okay, that was a lot of fun. Really enjoyed that. A little more challenging. There's 2 steps in this caliper too. The lower step, okay, is going to retain the lower line. The upper step is going to hold the uppermost fitting. Okay, so if you can kind of get in there, Steve, and give him a good look at that. Now we're ready to torque the lines up front. Okay, I've got the front end all buttoned up, and before we jump to the back, I just want to show you what it looks like. Start over here on the right side caliper. The line that crosses over from side to side is going to be on the bottom. The line from the master is on the top. The caliper has 2 release cut in it, one to catch this line and keep it from rotating, and then one a little higher up, stepped over to catch the other. I used the same mounting points for the wheel speed sensor harness. It clips right in using the OE connectors. Everything there is good. Looking up now, underneath, you'll see by the radiator, after I tightened up that connection, I was able to slide that elbow into the cutout that was there. I then used the hole that was in the bracket that is now vacated because I did not put the bolt back in. There's nothing to bolt it to. Ran a cable tie through there, pulled it tight, and you can see it's got that mounted up in there just right. Okay, secured the wheel speed sensor harness here, the over the fender mount for our brake line that crosses over. I repurposed that. Come over to this side, you can see the routing of that fitting. I think the front turned out really good, super pumped, ready to go onto the back now. Okay, now we're going to start on the back. We have 2 lines here. This goes to the rear master cylinder, runs up, it's going to come over and replace the hose here. So that's the first line. The second one is quite a bit longer. This runs to the rear caliper, through the swing arm. It's going to tuck up underneath the undertail, subframe, and then we're going to attach this to the ABS block. So this one's a little more complicated. Looking at it and reviewing it, I think this is going to be pretty straightforward and a little bit easier than what we did in the front. We're going to begin by emptying the brake system. We've already shown you all that stuff multiple times. I'm going to use my power bleeder to empty this out and empty out the caliper. If you don't have those tools, remember, turkey baster and gravity are your friends. Okay, we're going to go ahead and begin removing our stock lines. Little baggy trick I came up with yesterday. That's actually pretty darn cool, and we're going to run with that a little more here. See, I've got a rag there to catch. And we're going to put bag over it like so. This worked out pretty decent, so I'm going to keep running with this. Especially when you got to snake it through different spots on the bike. Like so. I'll lower it down a little bit. Okay, now we're going to remove the line from the master to the ABS unit. Back here, just going to try and get a rag down in there if I can, in case we have any brake fluid spilling out. It's a little bit tighter over here, so I'm just going to do the best I can to kind of tuck that down in there to catch it. Maybe a little tighter here with your banjo as well. Okay. Not too bad, but definitely snugger than what we had on the other stuff. Okay, that should work. You'll notice also, if you watch the front install, I reevaluated the number of banjos they sent, and it looks like they want you to reuse the OE banjos back here at the ABS unit, so I swapped that. Not a big deal. We did use new crush washers. The kit ships with plenty of crush washers, more than enough actually, so I was able to do that. You know what? This is, I need to just get myself a little more room here. Let that harness kind of move a little bit more. I think it'll be helpful. Okay. That out. Just try to keep the bolt with it and the crush. All right. Feed that fitting through like so. And you can see the value of that little baggie that I tied on. Check that out. It's holding all the fluid. Okay, now I'm going to go ahead and remove the line that goes from the caliper in the rear to the ABS unit. Got a couple of mounting points here on the swing arm. Those are 8 hex head fasteners. Okay, pop that out. Remove the bracket. Here's the bracket at the rear. And we've got a bracket up here at the front. A couple of retainers for the ABS. Wheel speed sensor in the rear. Dislodge this bracket from that OE grommet, like so. We're going to need these retainers. Just slide over the hose. See that right there? Okay, got another one back here. Oops. There's one all the way here at the cow. Another one up here. Okay. Now this block itself. Okay, right here, in between the tray and this manifold block, there's going to be an 8mm hex head fastener that needs to come out. Really not a lot of great access here. It's going to be very difficult to show you what I'm doing. But it is there, and we need it to come off. So I've got an 8mm wrench up in there. Do that. My hopes are I can break it loose and then get it out the rest of the way with my fingers and not have to wrench it the entire way. Okay, I got that bolt out. You know, really wasn't that horrible. Definitely pretty tight up there. I'm going to go ahead and pull this line off the rear caliper. This one, we got to snake this through a long way, so this is really going to be helpful here. No, we're not opening a dispensary, okay? This is only to catch brake fluid. Cable tie would work here too. Yeah, it's kind of funny. I've only been doing this stuff for, well, God, longer than I can even remember now. And Steve's like, really? And it took you all that time to think of that? Thanks, Steve. I was actually pretty proud of it. Thought it was a good idea. All right, and then we will feed this through our swing arm. Okay, like so. Okay, we're back up here at the ABS unit. I'll go ahead and grab the other one. This is the one that runs to the caliper. You want to pay attention to the orientation of these, obviously. Probably be a good idea not to mix them up. that thing's definitely loose and wagging around now. I didn't have enough like real small baggies, once again because we're not running a dispensary. It's an actual motorcycle shop. So what I did is I cut apart a larger baggie into 4 pieces. That's what I'm using right now. All right. And I'll come down here. Definitely want to have a good idea of how this is going to route. Eyeball that a little bit. Slide that bad boy through. There you go. Okay, rear caliper is where I'm going to start. Make sure you pull the sticker. If there's any debris or residue from that, let's get that off of there. Okay, now routing. Definitely want to take my time here. I want this super nice. And I kind of come up through the tail, past this here. If we're going to need to rotate the fittings, we will do that up top. Okay, I'll do that once we connect this to the ABS unit. Okay, and that's going to install right there like that. I'm going to use one of the aluminum banjos back here. So to recap, if you saw me do the stuff for the front earlier, I did use one of the aluminum banjos they supplied on the ABS block, and once I realized what the total count was, I decided to, on all the ABS block connections, to just use the stock banjos with new crush washers. There were multiple crush washers extra in that kit, so we had more than enough to do that with. All right, let's get that down there finger tight. Take a look at the routing. Let's try to get a general idea for where we're at. Okay, let's check the routing here. You can see I reused all of the stock ABS wheel speed sensor clips. They fit right on the grommets Spiegler had on the line. Spiegler has grommets on the brake line that allow you to reuse all your stock mounting points here as well. Got right up. Looks great. Real happy with that. That turned out, I think, as good as it possibly could. Now we're ready to do the master itself. I come up here and I'm going to kind of dip it down like so, and I think the way I want this to route now, I've been looking at this for a few minutes to try and find that sweet spot. I'm pretty sure that this is it, and I'll show you here in just a second. Yeah, I like this. Okay, Steve, if you want to come on over here. Unless you can see it really good there. What I want you to do is dip it down and through, and then see how I'm looping it back through the line that goes to the rear caliper. I think that's going to be the best position for this, okay? Now I'll grab a banjo bolt. I'm going to use the aluminum banjo. Got a couple of crush washers. Get this started. Banjo crush washer, fitting crush washer. And then we've got our brake component. Make sure the surface of the brake component's clean. Let's get this bad boy started. Okay, we're back here at the ABS unit. We're going to use one of the OE banjos. Banjo, new crush, fitting, new crush. Try and hold all this together. Get it under that harness. Get this thing into position. Okay, now you know why there's extra crush washers in there. Thankfully we still have a couple, because I dropped that one and I really don't want to go fishing for it. Okay. Starting this one's going to be just a little more challenging. That harness is just in a interesting spot. Got my 12mm wrench, and the shape of that banjo is going to allow me to kind of put some pressure forward on it. Okay, and try and support that. If you don't feel this going in real smooth, stop, okay? That is running right in there. The lip on the edge of that OE banjo allows me to put a little pressure forward on it with this open-end wrench. That was actually a pretty big benefit. So we'll go ahead and run this one down. All right. Like that. I like all that. Go ahead and put a little torque on this. Make sure we have the other one torqued up. Okay, so take a good look. I like the way that turned out. That's exactly where I want it. Go ahead and lift the bike back up and get everything torqued up and finished down here by the master. Okay, well, you know, after I got everything in here and I go to torque at the master, guess what? Well, I didn't like where I had the fitting. Okay, so I've got the banjo out here at the master. We're going to give this another go. And I'll explain to you why I just decided to do what I did. This is part of it. You know, remember when you're doing a project like this, even though this is technically a direct fit item, you're modifying this thing from stock big time. So there's going to be a touch of trial and error, even if you have experience. Okay, be ready for that and be patient enough to do a good, clean job. All right, and if you want to just roll on over here, Steve, I'll show you all why I chose to do this. Wait for a second. When you snug this up, okay, really it should be against that stop there. And when I had it on the other side of that, it was pulling over on the line that goes to the rear caliper, and I was out. I wasn't digging it. So I decided to make a change. Go ahead and torque that. Remember, aluminum banjo. You don't need to go crazy on this. Like so. And then that just dips right up in there. Quick review before we begin bleeding. You're able to reuse all the stock mounts for the wheel speed sensor harness, okay? We used colored banjo bolts that we supply with the kit. Everywhere you could see it, the caliper, the master, the two front calipers. Up here at the ABS unit, we reused the stock banjos and replaced the crush washers with additional washers that were supplied in the kit. Steve probably even got me on camera dropping the one when I was trying to get that one bolt in the back that was just a little to the challenging side, okay? Securing, I think up here, I'm feeling maybe one zip tie. I'll grab that and we'll show you, and then we're gonna start bleeding these brakes, man. We're ready. Okay, now we're ready to bleed the brakes, and this is something with these ABS bikes a lot of people are freaked out about. I'm gonna run you through the whole process, and honestly, it's no different than a bike that is not equipped with ABS. If you don't already have this, you need to order it from the site when you get the lines. The Speed Bleeder Bag and Hose Kit, man. You slide it over the end of the bleeder nipple. It just catches the fluid. It keeps the job really clean. You can reuse it over and over again. I've done a lot of bikes with this kit. You'll get some serious time out of it. It's worth the 10 bucks. Motul RBF 600 is the fluid that I'm going to use with this motorcycle. I always like to start with fluid that is new from a fresh sealed container, especially on a job like this one right here. If you're going to take the bike to the racetrack, you want to use a higher end fluid, better boiling points. Most importantly, it needs to be new. Old fluid that's been opened previously is nowhere near as effective as fresh. You see there, I'm just going to go ahead and fill the reservoir like so. Gravity is going to take a little bit of it. While that's happening, we'll come back here. Because remember now, we need to fill the master, the line up to the ABS unit, the ABS unit itself for this circuit, the long line that runs from the ABS unit to the rear caliper, and then of course the rear caliper itself. A little bit of patience. Pull the cap off this bad boy. Slide it over the bleeder nipple, make sure it's secure, which it is. Just gonna crack that for a second, see where our fluid's at. Okay, it's only dropped a little bit. So now what I'm gonna do, bleeder screw is open. I'm gonna push down on the pedal, hold it down, close the screw. Now letting up on the pedal, opening the screw, pushing down, holding, closing. Going to repeat that until we have good fluid flow. It's very important that you keep an eye on your fluid level to ensure you don't run the reservoir dry. If you run that reservoir dry, what's going to happen is you're just going to introduce more air into the system and you'll have to start all over again. Look at that. That did not take very long at all. The fluid level is quite low right now. We're going to top it off again. Make a little change to our process. Okay, bleeder screw is closed right now. I'm going to pump the pedal up. Hold it, open the screw, close the screw, release the pedal. I'm going to repeat this a few times. Once again, very important, you keep a good eye on that fluid level. that is a good, firm rear brake, okay? Roll that off the edge, like so. Let that run down in the bag. Cap this before we go to the front. Double check our bleeder. OE cap, right back on it. Brake fluid level. Okay, super important you don't overfill this. Get that nice and square. And make sure you keep it under the line. Go ahead and cap it, and then I'll just reinstall the mounting bracket back here for the reservoir. So the rear brake is done. Okay, we're gonna dive right into the bleeding on the front. Same process, the only difference, 2 calipers instead of 1, my friend. Go ahead and get that topped off. And what I'll do, because this is an over the fender routing, okay? Master cylinder comes in on the right side caliper and then supplies fluid over to the left. So when we go for that initial fluid flow, we want to get it moving on the left side. Once we've got it moving on the left, we are in great shape, home free, okay? I think I finally found one little thing I want to nitpick with this bike, and it's just the bleeder screws for these calipers, these Brembos. They point inward, kind of a little more difficult to reach. I'm going to open the screw, depress and hold the lever, close the screw. Repeat this over and over until we have fluid coming out down here at this caliper. My expectations are this is going to take a whole heck of a lot longer than it did for the rear, just because the length of the circuit is greater than the rear. There we go. Starting to see some fluid down here. And a whole ton of air. Actually can hear the air going through that ABS unit over my right shoulder. Getting pretty close to the point where I need to add some fluid. Actually starting to feel some pressure on the lever. Probably can see that a little bit in the video. And remember, at this point, we've only moved fluid through one of the 2 calipers. There's also a bleeder screw on the master, which we have not done anything with. So I'm going to continue over here. Okay, now I am going to move, go to the other caliper, probably hit the master just a little bit. Okay, we're over on the right side now. Already got really good fluid flow, so we're moving along here. Same gig. I'm going to pause right here. Now, based on the fact that I see good fluid movement and I'm still not really getting a lot of tension on the lever, I'm going to come up to the master real quick. You know, and this is something, everybody kind of has their own approach. I typically will not start up here. I like to start down at the calipers and get the fluid moving. There's some bikes where I've never even had the need to do the master. It's getting a lot clearer right now. Okay, you can see now, I mean, we're almost done. So there was quite a bit of air that got trapped up in there. Kind of move to pumping and holding now. Okay, that looks good there. Okay. Now we can head back down to the calipers and finish those off. Okay, we're over here on the left caliper. Got the bleeder bag on there. We're going to pump the lever and hold it. I'm going to do that a few times. Keep an eye on the fluid level. Got one big shot of air at first. Now it looks pretty clean. When I'm all done with this too, I'm going to show you a little trick that I use that gets out every last little bit. Okay, that's enough for this circuit. I'm going to make sure the screw is tight, and then we'll move to the other side. Okay, just wrap up over here on the right. Okay, that's that. We're going to go ahead and cap this screw off, remove our bleeder bag. Okay, go ahead and top our fluid off now. Remember, it's really important you don't overfill. Right about there is good. Seal this back up. We'll use this to bleed little Van's brakes on his R3. Cap it off. If you remember, I did rotate the master. Let me get that back down where I want it. Tighten that up, and then I'm going to show you a little trick I use to make sure that you've got all of the air out of your system. What I like to do here is I'm going to just pump this thing up a bit. Usually takes 2 cable ties put together. Depends on the length of the cable tie that you have. Okay, now what that's doing, it just holds that circuit open, okay? And then as we're sitting here just wrapping the bike up and it's moving around, it allows any air that could be down in a lower point just kind of migrate its way up through the system and eventually end up here in the reservoir. That works really good when you're trailering the bike a long distance, okay? Another reason to do this after you've done this job is it's going to allow you to keep a little pressure on the system. You can then take a quick walk around it and see, do I have anything seeping anywhere? If you do, then obviously you have a big problem that you need to address before you take that motorcycle out and ride it. Now's a good time to just take a good look at the bike, see if you have any areas that need to be cleaned up. So just a tiny little bit there from the bag and hose. I'll wipe that off. We'll go around the whole bike. Pay special attention, of course, to all of your painted surfaces. So to recap, difficulty of this project. Any of these ABS bikes, especially the larger bikes, the difficulty installing a braided brake line kit, it's higher than it used to be for sure. More disassembly is required, more patience is required with the routing. I think Spiegler's done a really good job of manufacturing these kits. They fit real close to the OE line kit, okay? So that's the stuff that we sell and really believe in. Obviously, that's what I'm gonna recommend that you buy. With this bike, I chose not to eliminate the ABS. I wanna ride it quite a bit before I make any determination on that. The first time I rode it, I noticed accurate, and it was 3 really damp sessions. I wasn't really riding the bike. I mean, tell the tires aren't even hardly scuffed, but like going into the turns under braking, I'm like, man, this bike is just super smooth and settled. So as I did more research, Suzuki put a lot of work into the electronics on this bike, including the ABS, and this R model can do some pretty badass stuff. And I want to be able to experience that, but I also want to be able to experience it without the fade that you would normally get from having those rubber brake lines. When they get hot, they just expand. You're losing your pressure. That part's no fun. So this Spiegler kit is going to eliminate that. If watching this video, you don't feel this is something you can do yourself, take it to a licensed mechanic, and make sure you take it to a good one too. We had an experience earlier this week where someone took a bike in to a dealer or someone that knew what they were doing, and they installed it, and a couple of the fittings need to be rotated. That's normal. They didn't do that. Instead, they twisted the lines and just had it, you know, all kinds of cattywampus. You don't want that. If you follow what I've shown you here and you've got some reasonable mechanical ability, you'll be able to get as good of a result as we did, perhaps even better. Over time, for sure, you learn more things about the bike, no doubt about it. I'm Brian Van, SportbikeTrackGear.com. This is the Suzuki, and this will work on either ABS model, the R model, or the standard Suzuki GSX-R1000 with ABS. This is our Spiegler brake line kit on our M4 X-Star replica bike, the man with the mullet himself, Jake Lewis, GSX-R1000R.